and Mack or Jim Brown or Leroy Kelly or whoever that they were for that generation, man, that's special. That was special. That was thrilling to get that done.
It was awesome, and got a chance to talk with him about it too, and in very Nick Chubb fashion. Got a couple smiles, which was nice to be able to get
right.
a few smiles on his face, but for the most part, complimentary of his offensive line, complimentary of the scheme, complimentary of the organization, complimentary of the city, complimentary of the fans. But one moment that was pretty cool, and, we had that awesome moment with Bernie where you're talking about Bernie touching Otto Graham, touching Baker, and the 75 years as we're celebrating that. And I'm wearing some of the 1946 gear right here on the show today. When I interviewed Nick Chubb, he was in one of the rooms with a Jim Brown jersey hanging over his shoulder.
Wow.
And I said, how cool is it that, you're the first Browns running back since Jim Brown to have 1,000 yards or more in 2 of your first 3 seasons. You were the first running back in the league, period, since Jim Brown in 1959 to have 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns in 12 or fewer games in a season. And here we are talking about this extension, the past Jim Brown, the present Nick Chubb, his jersey's over your shoulder, and that's not lost on him, that what it means to wear this uniform, the great running backs that have come before him in this uniform, and his time to carry on that legacy. And it's cool, that jersey is beautiful. The 75th anniversary, the Nick Chubb one looks especially beautiful to me, and it's a wonderful thing. And you're right. When you have a quote from the general manager that says this guy embodies the soul of our football team, I mean,
that's right.
You got to reward that guy. And from a culture standpoint, you had to. You had to, and they did.
Yeah. They did. It was very, very special. Those were your OBM Hot Topics. Ohio Business Machine, preferred copier provider, your Cleveland Browns, of all the X's and O's for your office. Call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. Congratulations. This was awesome this morning. Cleveland's very own bringing home gold in the Olympics. Katie Nijit bringing it home for Olmsted Falls. Now, Gibby, you're the second most famous person from Olmsted Falls.
Not famous.
You're number 2.
Infamous. Not famous.
Like El Guapo over here.
Gold in the pole vault, though. Ashland's finest, Ashland University finest, and right here in Olmsted Falls. So that was really sweet to see as the Olympics are winding down this morning. Get your tickets today for the Orange and Brown practice Sunday at noon, First Energy Stadium. Log on to clevelandbrowns.com to request up to a maximum of 4 general admission tickets to Sunday's practice as quantities remain available. Gates open at 11. The first 500 ticket fans who show up to the stadium's northeast and northwest gates and show that they have downloaded the Pilot Flying J My Reward Plus app will be granted entry. That is beginning at 10:30. Lots to get to. It is very, very good to be back, including the fact that we have football tonight, kids. That's right. Football tonight. Lots to get to. Chad O'Shea going to join us at 2:30. You have that to look forward to, which is nice. Off and running. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. Beau Bishop here for my great friends at Raising Cane's. During the month of August, Raising Cane's celebrating 25 years of doing it the right way every day, serving hand-battered, cooked-to-order chicken fingers, crispy crinkle-cut fries, buttery Texas toast, and mouth-watering cane sauce the same way they've been doing it since 1996. Join the party and celebrate with Cane's all month long. Enter for a chance to win great prizes. No purchases necessary. Visit 25yearsofcanes.com to enter and for official rules. Raising Cane's, one love. When I think football, I think Cane's, man. They're my guys at football season. Absolutely. It's going to be a steady diet of that for the young fellas. We've got football tonight. We've got a Hoff game.
That's right. Football's back, baby. 2021 season kicks off tonight.
This is, I'm really excited to watch this from the standpoint of it being football, but beyond that, from the fact that I've heard a lot of good things about Dwayne Haskins in Pittsburgh. And this is a guy who, when he was at Ohio State, certainly didn't know in terms of the lack of attention to detail that he would show in Washington, but how much of that was the situation in Washington, and how much of it could be, now that he's in Pittsburgh, stabilize a bit. Not certainly anything we want to see, but as a former Buckeye, I'm curious to see how he looks tonight. I think that's fascinating, and I've heard that he's passed Rudolph as number 2 over there.
A lot of talent, and if for the Steelers, that was when it happened at the time. Look, he was not impressive in his tenure at all with the Washington football team, but he was impressive at Ohio State. There is talent in there to be unlocked, and perhaps he needed to get in a more professional situation and one that demanded that he be a professional, because that's not what he was. Now, you'd think Ron Rivera would do that, but Ron Rivera maybe demanded it so much he could not measure up, and they released him in the middle of a season.
And bad habits could have already set in at that point.
Yep.
You know, because he had that first year was so chaotic.
Yep.
But he was dreadful here. I mean, let's not confuse. He was absolutely dreadful in the game he played here. And I remember you texted me in warm-up and going, boy, this ain't it. Yeah, this is not it. So, something happened over there. But that just adds to the intrigue a little bit of watching this one tonight, because you're not going to see any number 1 guys. Like
None.
The Hall of Fame, it used to be, for the kids out there, in the good old days, even in the Hall of Fame game, they would play the ones for a series.
One
or
series.
2, a series. You'd get a little. Now
taste.
You get none of it. So, I think it will be – I think the Haskins angle to it does add a little something.
And let's also make it perfectly clear that getting ahead of Mason Rudolph on the depth chart should not be considered a great accomplishment. However, I am curious to see how he looks.
I mean, it's valedictorian of summer school. I'm just saying, it's still, you get an award, right? They honor you if you win that, I think. So I think there's something to it. But it adds a little bit of intrigue to it, to the game tonight, where otherwise, you watch the kick. I think this is going to be, I've said this before, I love the Hall of Fame. We've been members since we've been up here. I take the boys at least once a year. I love the way that they do Hall of Fame weekend. I think this is going to be a very difficult weekend when you do 2 classes. When you do one on Saturday and one on Sunday, and the idea that a headliner class that has Charles Woodson and Peyton Manning in it is Sunday is tough. That is tough. And I'm afraid, my fear is that there will be a little bit of fatigue with it.
Definitely fatigue.
But
yes.
That there will be some fatigue. That by the time you get to Sunday, in terms of viewing it from a general public perception, it might not have the same excitement about it. Speaking of Manning and Woodson, do you guys know, those 2 guys are attached at the hip, of course. Woodson won the Heisman. Manning finished second. They played their entire NFL careers the same duration. Now they're going into the Hall of Fame at the same time on the first ballot. Do you guys know who the other 2 Heisman finalists were the year that Woodson won it and Manning finished second?
So this is what, 1997?
97-ish.
I'm going to throw a rant. I have no clues. I was going to say Tommy Frazier just because why not?
A little bit after him.
Okay.
Gibby, do you have a guess? Guess the stats, Gibby?
I have none. No guesses for me.
When was Eddie there?
Eddie won it in 95.
Okay.
So 2 years after Eddie.
All right. I didn't know if he was a runner-up. I felt like –
No. So I think it's the most talented – in fact, I can't imagine. I think second's eighth. The 4 Heisman finalists the year that Woodson won it were Charles Woodson, Peyton Manning, Randy Moss, and Ryan Leaf. Leaf was the number 2 pick in the draft.
Yeah, Leaf, and there was a debate if it was Peyton or Leaf. There was an actual debate.
Correct. But you're talking about 3 of the 4 Heisman finalists are first ballot Hoffs. I can't imagine that that's ever happened previously. And not only first ballot Hoffs, but as if that weren't enough, you could argue the transformative players at their position during the time they played. Manning is a 7-time first-team All-Pro quarterback. Manning was 10-time All-Pro. He's got 3 seconds and 7 first-team All-Pros during his tenure. Woodson, both with the Packers and the Raiders, and Moss was the defining receiver of a generation.
If there is a football game that were ever to be played, that was comprised of the 2 best teams ever, where they did a draft, for sure Randy Moss and Woodson are on the field.
Yeah, I would say.
And they're probably one of the first 2 people picked at their positions. And Peyton might be on the field.
Yeah.
But it's probably going to be Tom Brady and Joe Montana, duh.
Or Otto. But Manning,
sure.
what you can't argue is that as a regular season player, there's no one
probably the best regular season quarterback of all time
than Peyton Manning.
And if it was
really not close,
if it was truly 2 53-man rosters for the greatest football game of all time, all 3 of those guys are in that game, and two of them are 100% starting. Woodson and Moss are starting. Period. End of story.
Yeah, and that's all in one Heisman class.
That's incredible.
That's remarkable. A couple other things here quickly. We've got Warren Sharp coming up at the bottom of the hour. What do you make of this Deshaun Watson stuff with Philly?
I mean, there's been a little bit of smoke there, and in my opinion, where there's smoke, there's fire. But you are assuming a lot of risks. So perhaps they've done their own investigation and hired people to get involved, and vet this out. But it's hard to imagine something happening right now given everything that's out there. But at the same time, and that's what Pro Football Talk said and other people said, there's really nothing serious going on because people are in a wait-and-see mode. They need to know what the actual facts of the matter are in terms of what his availability is going to be at some point.
I think it's the Texans trying to drive up the value. Is what I think. Is, hey, make us an offer. I mean, we can't keep doing this. Their best chance to rebuild is either with him as their starting quarterback, and if that can't happen, and it seems like we're past that point, then getting a haul for him. And the only way to do that is to create a bidding war. If you're the Eagles and you are in on this, first of all, I'd do it in a second. If you can get him on a bargain of some sort, you do it in a second. Even if he has to sit this year, have it sit and deal with him next year. He's 25 years old. There's plenty of time, as long as there's not criminal stuff, and you'd have to vet that. You'd have to have your own people vet that, certainly.
Of course.
To make sure that there isn't, and in terms of how long he'd be out or if he were to be incarcerated or something like that, you got to do the due diligence. But as what we know now, that seems like if you're Philly, I do that deal. By the way, Philly, one caveat to that. Remember, Philly and the Carson Wentz deal, that's a first-round pick, but Wentz has to play 70% of the snaps.
Which he's
not going to happen.
Probably not.
So probably not. So now that pick will now go to being a number 2. So instead of having two 1s, they'll go back to the 1, and they'll have the 2 2s is most likely to be the scenario on that front. I saw this as well. You guys, Gibby brought this to my attention real quickly before we get to Warren Sharp on the Jason Garrett. So Jason Garrett, you guys saw this? I didn't see this.
Yeah. So he came out to address, doing a press conference as the offensive coordinator of the Giants. Said, hey, how's everybody doing? Good to see y'all. Someone said, great to see you, Jason. Basically was like, who's Jason? I'm Coach. You'll call me Coach. Thanks.
Come on. Of all the humans that I would think would call me Coach guy, he is not one of them.
No, and I've had an opportunity to meet him. I mean, from the area, right? He's a local
Cleveland
guy.
Kid, yeah.
Couldn't have been nicer and would not have did not give me in any way, shape, or form a call me Coach vibe.
No, that is not. I would, like, if you're going to go on, well, maybe it's a Joe Judge thing, because I could see Joe Judge going, call me Coach. I can see that.
It was as he's walking off, he said, it was great to see you guys at the end of it. And somebody said, yeah, great to see you too, Jason. And he stops, gives the guy a little stank eye and says, around here we call him Coach, and then walks off.
Do you think it was tongue-in-cheek?
No. The video would suggest
he seriously
Deion's,
wants people to call you Coach.
Deion's felt much more like maybe there was some fun being had with it than this did.
Not here.
Not.
Okay. All right. Very good. Obsessing over something like football can be a problem. If you're obsessing over gambling, it can be dangerous. Do something to take your mind off it. If you want some tips on what that could be, go to keepitfunohio.com for great ways to keep gambling fun. Warren Sharp Football, joins us coming up next. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. If your game plan for the season includes buying or selling a home, Howard Hanna Real Estate Services has you covered. Visit howardhanna.com/GoBrowns today. And with that, we head out on the hotline for a visit with Warren Sharp. He's one of the best NFL analytics guru, owner of Sharp Football Analysis. He joins us now. We want to encourage you, and this is a no-brainer. You love football. This is it. 462-page football preview. You can get it today. Team previews, season predictions, fantasy info, strategies. It's awesome. You log on to sharpfootballanalysis.com to pick yours up today. Warren, thank you so much for the time. Let's start with our team, my friend, which is pretty remarkable what's happened here over the last 3 or 4 years from a roster standpoint. And we go into this season with a team that, quite frankly, we think that's one that certainly has everything you need to win a Super Bowl. As you look at this Browns team, what do you see?
Well, first and foremost, I see a coach who has turned his franchise on its head and has gotten much improvement across everything. And what he was able to do last offseason was something that kind of I was predicting. We were betting him 33-1, 25-1 to be Coach of the Year. He obviously won that. And so I have massive praise for the job that Kevin Stefanski did. The roster itself and what your front office has done, they got the job started. And they continued building, particularly on the defensive side of the football this past off season, just the free agency. And they're basically using all avenues to acquire players. They're trying to do everything they can to bring in quality players to win while Baker Mayfield is being paid much less than what he's actually producing because he's still on a rookie deal. And you guys really have a great window of opportunity here this season. I am not betting against you guys in terms of the long-term markets and the futures betting markets, but I'm a little bit reluctant to bet on you simply because the public perception, last year's public perception was way different than this year's. And right now, you guys are kind of the most bet on team in that division. Everybody hates the Steelers. Baltimore is really not getting a lot of discussion, and Lamar Jackson's been out of camp. And I think you guys are kind of like that sleeping giant. And it's rightfully the crown that you're wearing, but it also doesn't provide enough value, in my perspective, to do some futures betting opportunities. But you guys are going to be a great team this year. If your defense improves, you do face a more difficult schedule of passing defenses this year. So your offense and your passing offense has to improve with the addition of Odell Beckham. You guys might end up using a few more 3 wide receiver sets. We'll have to see, but it's going to be a very good year, in my opinion, for the Browns.
And, Warren, that's music to our ears. And, again, if you haven't gotten this book, get it, the 460-page football preview. Log on to sharpfootballanalysis.com to purchase it because you're going to learn so much about not only your team, about every team in the NFL, not to mention some Cleve TA features in there, which is he's a good friend of the program here in Cleveland. Oh, yeah. So, Warren, let me ask you, you talk about this offense. We'll talk about the new-look defense in a second, but one of the big questions that everybody has on their mind is, what's the next step? Kevin Stefanski said if we stay the same, we're getting worse. So what's the evolution of this offense that you'd like to see based on some of the number crunching and film analysis that you guys have done at Sharp Football?
Well, there are a number of things, and you're right. Cleve TA on board here with us, and definitely contributes throughout this book and wrote some things about the Browns in here as well. Look, there are some things that you guys can improve. I actually felt like you needed to throw the football a little bit more on first down. It's difficult to do that because you have such a great running back core. We went through and ranked all of the different position groups in the NFL, and you guys have, in our estimation, the number one best offensive line and the number one running back core in the NFL. So how, as a coach, are you not going to want to do that? But we slice and dice things and look at, different situations. So not just full game. Obviously, if you're winning games, you're going to be running the ball more often on early downs in the fourth quarter. But even if you scratch out the fourth quarter, this is a team that had substantial benefit when they were passing the ball on these early downs. I think that there are some different things that you're going to be able to do with Baker Mayfield. His 0 to 1 step drop. First of all, let's say the positive, that Kevin Stefanski put him in far more positions to excel. They used more of that heavier personnel, which Baker is much more comfortable with. But they were not very good when Baker was in 0 to 1 step drops. He was even worse than he was in 2019. These are get the ball out quick, whether you're in shotgun. Most typically, he only averaged 5.3 yards per attempt with negative 0.05 EPA per attempt on these 0 to 1 step drops. So increasing that ability with the quick game to get the ball out of Baker's hands is going to be important. You do have a good pass rush. It's not as big of a focus that you have to get the ball out quick, but there are mismatches on the perimeter that you guys are going to find, and sometimes getting the ball into those skill position players' hands quickly and letting them do something with it is going to be beneficial. They called a lot of plays from these heavier personnel groupings, 13, 22, and 21 personnel. But they need to continue to improve the efficiency from those, and I wrote about it in the book, in the chapter, not to dig into like too many nitty-gritty details. I do think that you guys are going to – you found yourselves in a lot of second and longs in part because of some of the play calling that you had, and invariably – a lot of second and longs are going to lead to a lot of incompletions, which inevitably leads to long third downs. And that's what we saw from your team last season. So you were able to overcome some of those things, but you need to be more efficient in many cases on these early down plays at the beginning of games so that you can build bigger leads, because we know that the key to winning games in the NFL is winning at halftime and building those leads in the first half, making your opponent adjust at halftime. And you guys averaged the fourth most yards to go on third down. You are very good on these third downs, but that's less likely to carry over year to year. So you need to figure out a way to average, fewer yards to go on third downs. That means a little bit more early down efficiency and a little bit of cleaning up some of the play calling.
Warren, do you think Nathan and I kind of theorized at various points through this offseason and wondering if tempo would be something, because we didn't do it a lot last year. We know our quarterback likes to do it. Feel pretty confident that some of the stuff that Coach Stefanski did last year was done in an effort to protect a defense, especially a secondary that just wasn't what it's going to be this year, provided everybody stays healthy. And with so many mouths to feed, if you can just add a couple of plays here and there, does that seem like something that would fit from your perspective?
Well, situational tempo is something that I'm a massive fan of. I'm not a fan of, like the old Chip Kelly, just get out there and go as fast as you can no matter what, just because we want to try to wear out the opposing defense. That is not what I'm a fan of. But what I absolutely am a fan of, particularly when you have a decent gain on first down, get to the line of scrimmage quickly and call that second down play where it's short yardage to go and the defense has their first down personnel in and don't have their third down personnel in. I'm a massive fan of getting up there quickly on fourth downs and just QB sneaking it, or third and shorts and QB sneaking it. But in terms of like spreading the field, getting the ball into more playmakers' hands, using tempo to get these mouths fed, as you alluded to, look, I'm a fan of situational tempo in general. So regular play calling, not just short yardage type situations. I like using situational tempo and sprinkling it in. I'm less a fan of like, okay, this whole drive, we're just going to go fast. Yeah, you could throw that out there, but I like sprinkling it in, keep the other team off guard. As I write in the book, and as I've said many times before, the only way that a defense can gain an upper hand in today's football with all the rules that are so skewed to offenses is when you're predictable on offense. So anything that you can do to reduce your predictability, to make the defense not sure what's going to be coming, that's going to keep the chips on your side of the table. It's going to give you the upper hand and the leverage, and situational tempo definitely would accomplish that.
Talking with Warren Sharp. Follow him on Twitter at SharpFootball. Get his book that we're talking about right now, the 462-page football preview, sharpfootballanalysis.com. All right, we've talked a lot about the offense. You want to see more efficiency on early downs. I know that means for you, throw it more on first down, more play action on first down, getting the ball in Baker's hands. Let's talk defense. That's where the money went this offseason. That's where the draft picks went this offseason. What does this defense have to do to get this Browns team to be the team we all want them to be?
Well, the first thing is you got to consider, yes, your defense was the weak link on, if we're looking at the team last season in terms of you ranked 24th in overall defensive efficiency. I had you in a custom analytic that I like to use, which is early down success rate, looking at kind of like how good are you on early downs, how often are you forcing opponents into third downs, which is critical in terms of getting off the football field and getting the ball back for your offense, is having those teams attempt a lot of third downs. You guys actually were second worst in the NFL in that capacity. And the scary part is you guys played the number one easiest schedule of offenses last year. I mean, we know what the Steelers offense ended up devolving into from a predictability sense. And you played the Bengals. And, of course, the Ravens were a little bit down in 2020 off of their 2019 season. But then look beyond that, right? You're going up against team like the Jets, who was trying to lose every game, the NFC East in its worst year as a division, the AFC South, which was definitely down last season, and then the Raiders. So, like, you played the easiest schedule of offenses and had the second worst defense on early downs. How do we get better? Well, we're going to start with personnel. And, the acquisitions that you guys made, I think, at multiple different levels are going to help to accomplish that. The other thing that's going to help, always defense, is strongly tied to the offenses that you face. Like, you can get better on defense, but if you're going up against, Patrick Mahomes multiple times a year, your defense is going to look worse. You guys are going to play, even factoring in Patrick Mahomes based on my metrics, instead of playing the number one hardest schedule of opposing defenses, easiest schedule, you're going to play the number 24th easiest schedule. So your strength of schedule increases a little bit. You're going to be playing a little bit better offenses this upcoming season. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers returning for the Packers does not help your situation. The Patriots are going to look a little bit better as well. So it's going to be a challenge based upon your schedule getting a little bit more difficult. But I think you more than offset that with the players that you've added. I think the key places that you're building up talent, you've got a strong secondary, especially if you can get a little bit of health with the return of some of the players. I mean, I was tweeting out this offseason, just the change in personnel, whether you got guys back from COVID or back from injury, or you've got new acquisitions. I mean, you got so many like Pro Bowl caliber or Pro Bowl potential players on this defense that are new this year. It's really impressive, the job that this front office did to assemble this talent. Now they just have to gel, and the good part is it's not the pandemic offseason where we're doing Zoom meetings and not playing any preseason games. We get a chance to work with these guys. So I think that can't be overlooked either, is the ability to gel over the next month before the season actually starts. I have high expectations, especially you look at the first couple weeks of that season. Yes, it's going to be a jolt to the system against the Chiefs. At least you played them last year. Then you get the Texans and the Bears, a couple of offenses that you should have some success with. Boost that confidence defensively, make some adjustments. I think this defense can absolutely improve from 24th in efficiency last year to at least average. Like, I'm talking at least 15th, maybe even a little bit higher than that. And that's all you really need if you've got a top 5, top 10 offense in the NFL to have a lot of success and get back to the playoffs.
And you're right about that. Can they be average? And, with the names that are here and some of the talent, they have the opportunity to be even better than that. And I know that you liked what they did in defensively last year with that scheme shift, and then now the additions here. What do you kind of think this team is going to look like? And let me ask you this, because Joe Woods had told us on this show, Cleveland Browns Daily, that it was his intention to run about 400 snaps of dime defense. They ran 16 a year ago. Now with Grant Delpit, Ronnie Harrison, the addition of John Johnson, you can play some of that big dime. How does that impact what this defense can be and the ability to, be a little bit different in that personnel grouping than maybe some of the other teams in the National Football League?
Yeah, I mean, from a personnel perspective, the other thing I want to add just real quick is that the weather, you guys know from being in Cleveland, but the weather for like 3 straight games, you guys were dealing with like monsoons and tropical storm force winds, and that helps the defense, right? So the numbers are actually worse than what they are because the defensive numbers looked a little bit better thanks to the weather impacting opposing offenses for 3 straight weeks. The big dime and the personnel that you guys might use, like I'm always a fan of doing something a little bit differently than most of the rest of the league is doing, as long as you're matching up well with opposing offenses. So, like, I could just tell you, your defense last year against 11 personnel was terrible. You allowed over 1 EPA per play. That's absolutely terrible, and the 65% success rate. You were significantly better when you were playing nickel. You allowed 50% success and 0.11 EPA instead of 1.02. So you guys were much better, but now you've got different personnel, as you alluded to, and that is going to help this defense a lot, especially if you go up. We saw what, for example, the Chargers did against Lamar back in 2019 in the postseason, trying to play a lot of guys in the secondary and slow that offense down. So if you get familiar with that, it's going to be beneficial for you guys when you play the Baltimore Ravens, and keep in mind, like, you've got plenty of time to sort of practice some of that and get better at some of that over the course of the season until you play Baltimore, which isn't going to be until weeks 12 and weeks 14. So that's a benefit for you playing, getting used to some of that defensive personnel shifting earlier in the season. Can you go up against enough running quarterbacks to get it right? Well, yeah, I think you can, because I don't know if Cam's going to be starting by week 10. I really think Mac Jones is the guy who's going to lead the Patriots this upcoming season, the majority of games. But I think that you're going up against the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray in week 6, and that's going to be a great test for that big dime personnel that you're referring to. So, and maybe you even see week 3. We don't see Andy Dalton in Chicago in week 3, and you guys are using a little bit more of that against the Bears. So I love that idea, and I think it can work. But you guys are going to have to be much better than what you were last year when you were playing dime. That's for sure.
Warren Sharp, our guest, NFL analytics guru. He's the owner at Sharp Football Analysis. You got to pick this thing up. It's unbelievable.
It's incredible.
Log on to sharpfootballanalysis.com. Everything that you need to know heading into your NFL season. Warren, give us a little teaser into the book, and I'll just ask you, into the preview, I'll ask you this one. Is there a team that you like a little more than maybe the NFL community at large likes? Maybe a team that could surprise this year. Who do you like?
Well, so in terms of teasing the book, we break down all 32 teams, and I go in depth there. It's full color, and you're going to see tons of charts that are very easy for visual learners. You don't have to read a ton of words. It's 462 pages, but it's not like some sort of a reference manual or a novel that you just have to slowly peruse. It's going to catch your eye. There's going to be things that are going to be really easily called out to you, and you can really see what your team was doing last year, and we try to analyze what they did last year, what they've changed in the off season, and then what they're going to do this upcoming season. And there's not going to be a single team that you would look at in this book that you would say, oh, yeah, I knew all of that already. We're surprising you, even if the most popular teams out there. We're going to try to give you new information on that. In terms of a team that I think could make an interesting run this season, I'm a fan of what I think the Jets might end up doing this year. But if you want to talk about a team that will win more games than they did last season, I think the 49ers are in that category as well. They only won 6 games last year. I think they take a big jump in the West. And sticking with the West, it's difficult because so many of those teams are going to be good, just like the AFC North, where you got multiple teams there that are going to be good. But I think a team that's not getting very much discussion in the West is the Seattle Seahawks. Now I don't like Pete Carroll because he kind of interferes and meddles with the offense and tries to get him to run the ball a little bit too much at times. That being said, I think the big focus this offseason was Jared Goff was terrible. Sean McVay wanted to bench him during the playoffs last season, and now he's finally gone, and in comes Matthew Stafford. This team's going to be night and day different, but as you guys know, because you got one of these players, they lost a number of guys on their defensive side of the football that were key contributors. They lost a lot of coaches last offseason, but that's all everybody wants to talk about. And I think Seattle is kind of like the steady Eddie of that division. I think that they are going to be able to get back to the playoffs. You can lay only like minus 125 on the Seahawks to make the playoffs this season, and I think that's a pretty wise investment right there. So I will say this, though. Last season we didn't see quite as much because the way that the season played out and the off season, many of the good teams ended up being good, but typically speaking, about 50% of the teams that are forecast to make the playoffs based upon Vegas odds don't end up making the playoffs going back the last 5 years. So, there is going to be some interesting changes and new teams that are going to come into the mix. And this is why, although I think the Chiefs are going to be hard to beat and the Bucs are going to be hard to beat, I'm not betting on these teams in a 17-game season to, futures. There's just not enough value there. I am looking at some of the teams that, maybe didn't do quite as well last season that are going to have some value in their odds this year.
Warren, you're the best, man.
Yes.
Thanks for your time, man. We appreciate it a great deal.
Thanks for having me, guys. Great luck this season. Hope you guys do well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
He is Warren Sharp. He is the man behind Sharp Football. Check it out, sharpfootballanalysis.com, to purchase your football preview, and it is one of a kind. Go ahead, Z.
So I feel like I know this team very well. I watch the tape of every practice, of every game. This has stuff in here that is beyond next level in terms of the analysis, the breakdowns of plays where there's pre-snap motion versus not, versus pre-snap motion with play action, pre-snap motion without play action, play action without pre-snap motion, all of these things, and then the different personnel groups, and they break it down by how much better you are, what's your success rate given things, the EPA, the expected points added when you are in a particular defense or offensive set versus the league versus yourself. I mean, some of this stuff is fascinating, and it's, I think, an incredible resource, and it spans other things. Spans the scores, it spans fantasy, all of it, and you get the whole entire league. So you want to get ready for each game on Sunday. It really is awesome, and there isn't anything else like it. Much like we would say that about Dane Brugler's draft guide, this is a similar level of just thorough analysis that is not available anywhere else, frankly.
Yeah, good job out of you there, Warren. Thanks you. Good
job by him.
Yeah, very good job out of him. EOX Vantage connects core systems that don't talk, my friends. From reporting and analytics to insight and decision-making, gain a more complete, real-time picture of your business. Eliminate Excel nightmares from business processes and visualize your important data. It's all in one place. You can gain real-time insight to make data-driven decisions on performance through role-based visualization dashboards. And with EOX Vantage, you can benefit with lower overall costs, better alignment between technology and business needs, scalability, ease of deployment, and management. EOX Vantage makes your data work smarter. It really is that simple. It's going to move your business forward. You're all about growth. Your software should be too. With EOX Vantage, your company will scale effortlessly. A local presence right here in Cleveland, global footprint trusted by some of the world's biggest brands, and a 2021 Cleveland Plain Dealer Top Workplaces winner. Head to www.eoxvantage.com for more. We are loaded up in the final hour of the program. Oh, yeah, lots of coaches coming down the pipe.
Yes.
Lots to look forward to, which is nice. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on Cleveland Browns Daily. If you're sick and tired of your outdated kitchen, it's the perfect time to upgrade to a new, modern design. At Northeast Factory Direct, cabinets include all of the upgrades: solid wood, full extension drawer glides, cushion closed drawers, and doors. And right now, stop in and take your photo with Flat Alex for a chance to win a $500 gift card. Just take Northeast Factory Direct on Facebook or Instagram to be entered into the drawing. So if you're thinking about remodeling your kitchen, go to northeastfactorydirect.com and schedule your appointment today. Certainly one of the more interesting and intriguing positions where there will be battles for playing time. And for who makes the team, of course, is at linebacker. For some insight on how that is going very early in camp, here is Z one-on-one with our linebacker coach, Jason Tarver.
Coach, linebacker.
You're down 15 minutes long.
This is a lot of returning guys, really a lot of attention in this camp because it's an interesting position. Not only are guys competing to make the roster and the competition is stout, guys are competing to get on the field, in the base, in the sub packages. So far, what have you seen from your room, just kind of top level?
Well, we've been very deliberate in how we worked in the offseason, and proud of the guys for that, because the biggest thing is coming into camp, able to be in shape and run. And there's been some little things that happened already, but because they're in good shape, hopefully they'll be back soon, some of the guys. So deliberate's number one, and number two is team-oriented. We're competing, but we're working to be the best group in the league as a linebackers group. And we're excited about where we've been through the first 5 days, excited to get back on the grass today.
I know you are, and one guy who probably won't be out there today, but will hopefully be back soon, Anthony Walker Jr., who just kind of, from somebody observing, he just seems to have really assumed a leadership role in that room and really on this defense. So what has he brought to your room on the field and also in the meeting room, in the locker room?
Well, everybody throws around the phrase being a pro, being a professional. Well, what does a professional mean? It means you do things until you get them right. You're just going to go until you get it the way it's supposed to be. That's Anthony's personality. Sometimes he knows how to do it and he can do it right away, but if he doesn't, he's going to make sure it's right. And he also, everybody sees that, and he's able to communicate that. And when you have somebody that's like that, that's professional, and they're going to be productive, people gravitate to that. So Anthony's been outstanding, and he's learning our terminology, and he learned it really quick. And in the room, it's good to have that mid-level pro that's got experience but wants more.
It is, and he kind of reminds me of the Nick Chubb of the defense. Physically, he kind of looks like Nick Chubb. He's carved out of stone, seems to just kind of go about his business. Maybe a little more animated on the field than Nick, but you just kind of see that reverence that the other players have for him and the respect of his work ethic.
If something goes on and we're talking about something and players are communicating and it's not right or it doesn't happen first, which is what practice is for anyway. You got to practice. You got to work together so that you hear each other and can work together. Anthony goes right over and fixes it, and that's what you do. When something happens, you fix it, players and coaches, and he's been wonderful that way for us.
All right, JOK back yesterday, not able to get on the field just yet, really, for the team period. That's going to come shortly. Where is he kind of from a mental standpoint since he was able to be in there, and how excited are you to see him unleashed?
Well, we've used our virtual experience from last year for the first 10 days because we had to be virtual. So we used some FaceTime, some Zoom meetings, some getting creative with where JOK is looking through a camera at us, and it's been awesome. He's very detailed and wants to do things correctly, and that's to his credit. But where we are, we're going to bring him along, and he's going to work to master his position and work with the guys. And we're just excited to see him come out and move around. I know yesterday he did a little bit in individual and was just pacing during the team periods, wanting to get in. And then so we gave him assignments, look at the play, make the call, just to get his energy so he's doing something. So that's good. And as we go through here in the next few weeks, we'll be able to see him.
Is he going to be just a will, or are you cross-training him at multiple positions like you do with so many of the other guys?
Well, our Will and our Sams are on the edges more, and you've heard us say this a little bit. Our Will and our Sams are on the edges more, and there's certain packages where they can be interchangeable. So he played in those space situations in college and inside. So we have things we can do to put him in he's basically on the edges in those space situations, but he's a good cover guy, he's a good rusher too. So, the Will position, the label fits him, but again, you can see him in spots that are easy for us, but maybe hopefully as we go, not as expected for the opponents.
So those are the two newcomers, the headliners in that regard. And then you've got a trio of younger guys coming back in either their second or third years. Jacob Phillips yesterday, working with the ones at that Mike position with Anthony Walker Jr. out. He seems to look thicker to me. He looks like he's put on some good weight, still looks fast out there. What have you seen from Jacob Phillips that makes you laugh when I say that?
He came back, and I look at him when he came in the room, and I go, I think you grew. And he goes, Coach, my dad said the same thing. And it was pretty funny, but I think he grew. What's been awesome about Jacob, I did say it to the media too, is there's one play and he just looked and the whole thing was wrong and he goes, you get over there, this is, I'm like, that's what you're supposed to do. And he wants that, and he's got that in his personality. And what's cool is we have a lot of guys that are that direct. Jacob, Malcolm, that Anthony Walker, that really just want, Elijah Lee, to his credit, they can see it and they can line everybody up, but they want to be that guy. And the more guys that you have like that, the more excited you are as a coach, because they'll communicate too, and they ask intelligent questions. So, and of course, length and speed, Jacob's shown that. But what he did is he's got more flexible too, because that was his biggest working point through the offseason, taking care of his body and get more flexible. He's worked on that, and that's to his credit, gives him a chance.
It certainly does. And then Mac Wilson's a guy that, we've talked about, and he even told us, look, I struggled last year. Ever since I hurt that knee, I was thinking about my body, and sometimes I would get lost. And we know he had that great game to finish in Kansas City. He looks to be in incredible condition coming back, a guy who really worked hard. And I know he's mentioned he's kind of joined himself at Anthony Walker Jr.'s hip, had a nice start to camp, that interception in the red zone drill. What have you seen from Mac, and are you pleased with his progress as well?
Oh, yeah. The number one thing we talked about, one of our off-season goals, is when you come to camp, you don't want to be fighting two things. You don't want to be fighting getting in shape and playing football. You just want to play football, because this is where we get better, right out here. You get better just at playing football, so let yourself do that. Both Mac and Jacob went through things. They really hadn't had injuries before, and they both fought through it. If you haven't done that, that isn't the easiest thing yet when you're 21, 22 years old. If you're an old coach with a bunch of ACLs, everything hurts, right? But these guys, they hadn't got. So what's cool is they went through that. So now they're able to overcome that. Mac said, I want to get in really good shape. I want to play like I did in that last game. How do I do that, Coach? And I said, here's your process, build this process. And he built it. And then he got with Anthony, and they just keep building their own process. So he's given himself a chance. He's more bendable. He's more explosive. He can run a lot longer, because you got to be in shape. So he's able, we've seen him through the first 5 days finish plays better. When you're in better shape, you finish plays better, because you got to run. Defense, you got to run. And so he's given himself a chance. And we really like where he's going. And now it's a matter of just playing football and trusting himself. There's still some plays where he's thinking and he can go, but there's some plays where he's really going too. So he'll get those. He'll get that, because now he can just play.
And you talk about, look, in this defense, especially linebackers and the NFL, the way the game changes, you've got to be able to play in space, you've got to be able to run, you've got to be able to cover, and you got to be quick to do so.
Yeah, you got to be able to do those things. I mean, there was a rep yesterday. I mean, the one that stands out is the red zone interception. But Mac had a pass rush yesterday that was perfect. It was perfect in how he executed it, but it was also perfect because he's got his body in such good shape to flip his hips, power out of his legs, that it was just perfect. It's like every once in a while you see the perfect play, because there are no perfect plays, right? There's no perfect plays. There's no perfect calls. There's no perfect calls, only perfect execution. Well, he executed a couple things perfect, and that's cool. And that's confident growth for everybody. When you see something that's, people talk about play calls and all this stuff in the offense. You don't know what the offense is picking. The offense doesn't know what the defense is picking. But if you can execute what you're supposed to do to the best of your ability by your training and how you set your mind, that's what we're all looking for. And there's a couple times he did that yesterday, so you can tell I'm excited about that one.
Yes, you are fired up. I love to see you animated like that, talking about it. And speaking of Taki, last year, great as a run defender and improved in space. He had that pick six. He had the interception in the wild card win over the Steelers. He's come back. He looks lean and fast to me as well. What have you seen from Sione now entering his third year along with Mac?
Yeah, he does. He did a good job of getting his weight to where it was. Sione had a really good offseason a year ago, and that put him in a position to be productive. I think he knows now how to do it, which is good. That's what happens when you have your first offseason as a professional. A lot of guys don't know how to do it. They've never done it. So they got to work through it, and he did it again. That was cool. Sione loves contact, and he's had some times where even in camp where they run it at him and he knocks 2 or 3 guys back, and he's really good at that. What Sione is improving on, and there's been some good in some improvement areas in camp, is continuing to be decisive with his eyes and where he's looking. So that's what we're working on. Because when you harness that power and you direct it right, it's going to make he makes plays. That's right. So, and he's gotten better in space. His tracking angles. We talk about tracking when we tackle. That means if you have the ball and I'm in here, I'm going to track to the hip, your near hip. And I'm going to be, the further I am my way, I'm running really fast. The closer I am, I'm just short striding a little more. Doesn't mean I'm slowing down. It just means I'm shortening my stride so I can adjust. He's gotten better and better at that. And we work that every day, and he works that on his own. So that's what we're working on in camp.
That's good to hear. And I mean, we've already are 5 guys in, and we haven't even gotten to the venerable veteran Malcolm Smith, who came in last year. You were familiar with him, played so well, especially in coverage, and as those sub packages gave you a lot of good reps there a year ago. Comes in, you can see he's just comfortable. He's a veteran. He's a professional, to your point. How's Malcolm doing here, and kind of mixing in now with this room that all of a sudden is fairly crowded? I think there are going to be some real tough decisions.
Yeah, Malcolm came back to camp, and his traps got bigger, and he just gets in shape because he's a pro, and you can see his shoulders, and he just looks good, and he's, so he comes back, and you're like, okay, Malcolm's back, we feel good, Coaches and players, everybody feels good. Malcolm's consistent. Malcolm's seen a lot of football. Malcolm knows control. What I mean by control is he knows when to go fast, he knows when to be under control until he knows, and that is one of the most powerful things you can have as a football player, because you're not always going full speed. You don't always want to go full speed. You want to be able to control, see the ball burst. Malcolm has that, and that's his biggest strength. He's playing more of all the positions too. We used him in those cover roles so that hopefully we can be more multiple and put Malcolm and whoever on the field with him in any time this year, and he's studied that in the offseason. Proud of him.
You mentioned the control, and I was doing Browns Daily with Joe Thomas earlier this week, and he said, my whole thing was to always be under control. And he said the great ones are always under control. And to hear you use that word for a veteran like Malcolm who played so well, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's simple things for a linebacker. Anytime your feet get real close together, it's really hard to cut. Like if you just stand up and put your 2 feet together and your knees apart, can you move? No. That's why the first drill in basketball is shuffling, or the first thing we do at linebacker is shuffling, right? So keeping your feet apart at the right times and being able to burst and turn at the right times, that's the number one step. So, you see development. Guys are racing to do that. It's not a race. It's how powerful you are. Yeah. And we're learning that. What's been cool is to watch some of our young guys understand that. Jacob now, Jeremiah understands that. Being under control so that you can move, that's it. Because you want to be able to move and then explode. And, all that training is so that you can burst when you need to.
And then a guy who's been here for a while in various capacities, was a safety at one point, now in your room, Montrell Meander, obviously clearly beloved by his teammates, really fits in nicely with that room. How's he continuing to progress in his transition from being a former safety into your room?
Everybody loves Montrell, and he plays hard, and you can't not love him because he's such a good person, good guy. He plays a little more on the edges as well because that's where he was rather than in the middle. Becoming more productive even in these 5 days at just feeling and avoiding how to get off of blocks, so that we're working with him on that. But he's another one. He got in better shape even from spring to camp, a little bit looser. What happens sometimes is you think you got to be super heavy to play linebacker, but everybody's got their perfect weight where they're explosive. Yep. And has that ability to control and burst, like we said, a lot. But I get excited about that.
I like you get excited.
So with Montrell, that's what we're focusing on. We're trying to give him a base, a home, and he is a good special teams player. So that'll be one of the things we talked about from the very jump, Coach Brief and I, is linebackers play special teams. Right. It's just like defense. Yeah. You play special teams, okay? That's what we do. So when we looked at the self-scout and things, we had a lot of injuries and things moving around at linebacker. And those aren't excuses. That's what happens. But linebackers play special teams. That's right. So whoever's going to win these competitions, they play special teams. And you know what? You get paid more the more you play. So I would want to be on D field goal block. I want to be on field goal block. I want to not do what Coach Priest says and knock the heck out of somebody, get my hands up, scoop it and score. I want that every time. And our room needs to be wired that way, and I think we're better wired that way than we were. That's the competition, and that's who we have.
It is competition. How do you kind of lay out to these guys, look, we're going to be in nickel a lot. We're going to be in dime a lot probably this year. So your reps are so meaningful in the competition, not just to make this roster, but to get on the field in some of those sub packages are so meaningful and so intense. You know, how do you kind of communicate that to them, and how have they responded knowing that that's the case here?
Well, like, for example, when we're installing and we only got
Back in 30.
well, then you're all going to get one, and I'm going to emphasize that you're all going to get one, and let's see who does it.
Yeah, let's go.
Because it's production, it's competition. Let's go. And we had a great one yesterday. We had a newer call, and we had a formation we hadn't seen, but Malcolm looked at Sione, and they got it done. That's awesome. That's what we want to do. Work together.
Coach, it is always a pleasure talking to you. Very excited to see your room. In fact, it's one of the rooms I've been watching the most in this camp because of the competition, because there's so much talent in there, and people are wanting to be on the field and trying to make that case for themselves, and it's fun to see and always great to talk with you. So thanks so much for the time.
Oh, you're welcome. Great to talk to you as always.
You're up.
That's great stuff there, and it's that position group is the one we said at the start of camp that's one where you could. It's very easy to say you could either be a starter or off the team, like that's how thin the margin is at that position.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And finding ways when we're going to be in nickel and we're going to be in dime, those sub packages, who earns those valuable reps? And you go back to the building the Browns when, John Johnson said third down is the Super Bowl. Because if you can't make plays on third down, you can't play. Those are the most important downs. Those are the money downs. And for the Browns, it's going to be figuring out who plays in those third down situations at this position that can cover in space and execute the blitzes that Joe Woods dials up. That's going to be the key. That's what I'm interested to see.
Yeah, it's going to be very fascinating. Catch Browns Live, presented by Cross Country Mortgage, throughout the 2021 training camp. The Great Z and Ken Carmer bring you all the action, analysis, and exclusive player interviews with coaches as well, live from practice. Visit clevelandbrowns.com/Browns Live for show dates and times. Our wide receivers coach, Chad O'Shea, going to join us coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Raising Cane's celebrating 25 years of doing it the right way every day, serving hand-battered cooked-to-order chicken fingers, crispy crinkle-cut fries, buttery Texas toast, and mouth-watering Cane's sauce the same way they've been doing it since 1996. Join the party, celebrate with Cane's all month long, enter for a chance to win great prizes. There is no purchase necessary. Visit 25yearsofcanes.com to enter and for official rules. Raising Cane's, one love. And with that, it is our privilege to be joined, as he had joined right there in Berea with our wide receivers coach, Chad O'Shea. Coach,
yes.
Thank you so much for taking the time, our friend. We appreciate you a great deal. We got a ton of things, specific things to ask you, but I'll just start with a big picture one. What is it like for you to coach this group that is so diversified with true definition of vets and pros, but also some precocious youngsters? Certainly Schwartz can fly, and Donovan Peoples-Jones has actually turned a lot of heads, obviously. What is this group like for you to coach that has this type of diversity in it?
Oh, it makes work coming to work fun. I mean, it's awesome. This group is great. They do have a lot of diversity, but they do share some common things, and that is they have great work ethic, great attitudes. It's just been awesome to come to work, and it's competitive. I mean, these guys are turning the film on, and they're looking at each other, and they're being pushed by each other. So that's real obvious when you turn the tape on, and that's something as a coach you want. And every day they're trying to be the best versions of themselves, and they're doing that. So it's been great.
And this is great. This is the first time we've had Coach O'Shea, one of the great friends of the program, now in our studio. One of the nice things of 2021 as opposed to 2020. And, Coach, you're out there and everybody wants to see the receivers, right, in camp. That's one of the things that's easy to see. Oh, who's standing out? And we'll talk about some of the big names in your room. But Donovan Peoples-Jones, a guy that we've talked about, had another nice day yesterday. Seems to be right now, at least the early talk. And I know you'll make sure that he stays very measured. And I will tell you this, when I talked to him after practice, he said, this doesn't matter. I have to do this when this matters and earn everybody's trust and confidence. But, I'm just trying to continue to do the right thing day after day. But what have you seen in that evolution year one to year two with number 11?
I think first of all, he's come into camp in great shape. He really did an outstanding job, within his physical condition. And then he's a guy that has always done an outstanding job mentally for us. We can line him up at different spots along the way. He's a multiple role player for us. And that increases his opportunities. So anytime you can line up more spots, you're going to have more opportunities. He's made the most of his opportunities for sure. And, he's a guy that wants to be coached. He wants to be coached hard. And I think he truly comes into this building wanting to earn the respect of his teammates and coaches on a daily basis. And that's right there what we ask our players, is to come in here with that mindset. And I think we got a group of guys right now that has that mindset collectively, and that's what's making it fun for me as a coach with this group, and it's a competitive situation.
It is, and for a guy like Donovan, we'll talk Kaderl and Hollywood and even some of the younger guys, Odell looks incredible, and we'll talk about him in a second, but not doing team drills. And Jarvis has been limited in how many reps you're giving him. So this has been a real opportunity for Donovan in particular to work with Baker and build that chemistry because he's working with that group a lot. How valuable is that for these guys that, if everybody was taking all the team reps, maybe they wouldn't be getting these opportunities?
Yeah, it's something every day we talk to the players about opportunity, and you have to make the most of your opportunity when it presents itself. And that's something looking back last year when Donovan had the opportunity to play with some of the circumstances we were dealt, he did so, and he did it at a level that was at a winning level. And then this year, the same has been true. He's come into camp. He's been well prepared. And he had an opportunity, and really there's been a lot of positive things he's done on the field, and he'll be the first to tell you that there's a long way to go, and There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to improve on. And I think that he shares that same mindset of several of our other guys in the room. But, again, Donovan is off to a good start, but long way to go.
Yeah, it certainly is, Coach. And look, football's about trust. It's 1/11th, right? And I think back to last year when he was thrust into it. I remember in the Dallas game, didn't feel like he missed a block. He knew everything in the day. I remember the blocking from him just blowing us away when we saw that. And then the injury in Cincinnati, his first catch, I believe, is from Jarvis.
Yep.
And then he ends up making the big plays on the final series, and he's thrust into it. And you go, okay, we can trust this guy. And I would imagine that that's a big part of what you're trying to get through to your group as a whole is our quarterback's got to trust that you're going to be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. And is that something that you're able to do this year even more now that you're into the second year here with a lot of these guys?
Yeah, the first thing is I strongly believe in the word trust, and it's so important to what we do, especially as it relates to young players when they're trying to earn the trust of the offense, but they're trying to earn the trust of the quarterback who's stepping in the huddle, looking them in the eye. So that's something that Donovan, when you look back at last year, a lot of those situations he was in that he was successful within, he never practiced, but he was prepared because he stayed focused mentally. He did an outstanding job of understanding that his role could be different once we got to the game. And those couple examples that you mentioned in the Dallas game and Cincinnati game, those are great examples because here a guy is in a place in which we didn't expect him to be, and he makes the most of his opportunity because he is prepared for the opportunity, and that says a lot about who he is. And that really is what we're trying to do offensively and as a team is we're trying to build that trust every day. It's our goal to build the trust every day within each, the locker room and the coaching staff. And again, I can't say enough good things about our group and how we've tried to do that thus far.
I want to talk about Odell because if you were not aware that he had injured his ACL in that game against Cincinnati and just came out here and watched him run around, you'd say there's no way that guy is coming off of an injury. Physically, he looks incredible. But he said something that struck me at his football camp, and then I've observed some things that I wanted to ask you about, which was at the camp he said, I've got to fit into the way they want to do things in this offense. And I thought that was an interesting statement coming from Odell, and I've noticed you two especially during some of those special teams periods, he's running routes, and it looks like he is giving great attention to detail with the precision of where he needs to be on the field in each particular route, when the cuts happen, things like that. This seems to be an offense, we know in the ground game it is, and also in the pass game, that's built on that kind of specificity and attention to detail. And that, for me, just watching it, that makes me really happy because his talent is obvious.
Yeah, and I think when Odell was injured last year and he was in a position of looking at this from the outside in, he saw it as an offense that was very successful based on what we were doing, both in the run game and the pass game, and he sees opportunity. And he sees opportunity the way we're trying to do things here, which, Coach Stefanski is going to be very demanding of our accountability, and as it pertains to detail, we're being asked as players here to be very detailed. And that's something that I think Odell has done a tremendous job of when he's worked with Baker within these on-field sessions and of being as detailed as he can and trying to get exactly the nuance of the route exactly the way we want it done. And I think he's worked extremely hard and sure has made a lot of progress.
It's going to be fun to see him out there in these team periods and then obviously when these go, because when they can have that kind of sync, as I said, his talent's undeniable. He looks incredible right now. How hungry is he to kind of get out there and, get ready and test himself and take that next level?
Yeah, he has a strong desire to be a part of this as fast as he can, and he's going to follow the plan. And I think we have some people within the building that have done a great job of laying out that plan. We have a lot of confidence, in our staff here that has put the plan together, and then it's our job as coaches and Odell to follow that plan. No one wants to be out there as much as Odell, because I think he loves being around his teammates. He loves competition. He loves to win. And those are things that I can't wait to see once he gets out there.
Coach, I want to ask you about Anthony Schwartz. Obviously a young guy that is – you can't teach that speed, right? No. But it's just so – it's incredible what he has. But as you're molding that and trying to turn him into a pro and make him be somebody who can be counted on this year, what is your message to him, and what are you seeing from him early, although obviously we haven't been able to see as much as we'd have liked?
Well, one of my messages to Anthony is to follow the lead of these guys in the room with him. He's got some great examples, and one of the examples I've used with Anthony here is Donovan Peoples-Jones, because he's 1 year removed from where Anthony was. So yeah, we use Donovan as an example on a lot of things on how he can work to be a professional. So much of this is not only what you do on the field, but the things that you do off the field that make you a great professional. And we have some great examples in the room, not only Donovan being a second-year player, but then, even further than that, obviously Jarvis is an outstanding leader. Odell has provided him with some insight that's been very helpful to Anthony. And, we're very fortunate to have a guy in our building that can run like him. And I'm looking forward to seeing his future here. And he's got the benefits of some guys, again, as veteran players in the room, not only at his position, but I think in the locker room, that can help him in the transition to be an NFL football player.
And how does that speed, and we'll talk about the offense kind of in general in a second, but how does that speed and the ability to stretch a field vertically, but also get some more of that jet motion in and stretch it horizontally, how does that help the overall execution of the offense, just the threat of his speed?
Yeah, I mean, when you got a guy on the field that's fast, you can thread in all kinds of different directions. And the first way is north and south. And then, obviously, his ability to run with the ball in his hands is something that we're really looking forward to seeing. And it really puts a lot of pressure on the defense when you have that speed on the field. It helps everyone. It helps the run game. It helps the other guys that are on other routes on that part of the pass. So certainly speed is something that you can't teach. I can't go out there and do a drill for this. He has it, and we look forward to his improvement every day.
Coach, unique circumstance with Demetric Felton, who's in your room. He's in the running back room, in the special, doing all the special team stuff as well. Love a lot of what we see from him. Do you have experience with that in terms of having guys bounce back and forth between places, and how do you make sure that he's not drinking too much out of a fire hose there?
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is just making sure that we have a plan for him in place every day, because it is hard. It's hard to learn one position in the NFL as a rookie, much less two. But this guy has come in here. He's embraced the learning. It hasn't been too big for him, so the volume hasn't gotten to a point where he's not functioning at the level we want. So he's split time between running back and receiver, and that creates value for him and obviously helps us as a team when you have a player that can do both. And, the way he's tried to learn the information at both spots has been awesome. I mean, I was just on the phone with him a couple hours ago. He was eating lunch with his father, and, we were preparing him for the next day, because that's part of this is, hey, tomorrow you're going to be a running back, tomorrow you're going to be a receiver. And, that's a great thing for him, but it also puts a lot of responsibility, but something that we think this guy can handle based off of working with him the last couple weeks.
Yeah, he's a running back, he's a receiver, he's a gunner, he's a returner. There's a lot on his plate, but we got a chance to sit down with him earlier this week. An impressive young guy. We'll get you out of here on this one, Coach, and we very much appreciate the time. But I want to talk about the offense in general. We didn't mention Jarvis. Listen, we all love Jarvis. He's our favorite guy. We would all be wearing Jarvis jerseys on the show if we could. The leader, and he looks great. It's good to see him healthy out there. But offensively, you talked about how much fun it was to be a part of this staff, where you've got yourself, who's called plays in the NFL. Bill Callahan's called plays in the NFL. AVP, Coach Stefanski. The amalgamation, a lot of those trick plays we saw last year were things that you did in New England, brought down to Miami, now brought to Cleveland. And something struck me at the end of last year. Coach Stefanski said, look, if we stay the same, we're getting worse. So I know you guys did a big scheme evaluation, but how fun is it now trying to figure out what the evolution of this Browns offense is, and you guys get to go kind of in that lab and put that together?
Yeah, that's the fun part for us. And the first thing I'll say is this staff is outstanding. And the one word that I describe these guys to work with them is humility. Everybody's willing to do different things, to try different schemes, to improve. And I think you have to have a bunch of guys that are humble to do that. And that's our goal right now is we have a lot of guys that can help us win on offense, a lot of skill. Our offensive line, they do an outstanding job. So it's our job to put that all together and kind of go to that next step, but not lose sight of what we do really well too. That's part of your scheme evaluation is not only looking forward on what we can maybe add, but what things do we hang our hat on that we can really do well again, and that's part of that too.
Coach, Nathan lied to you, and the reason he lied to you is he said he's going to get you out of here on this one. We have to ask you one more, because when Bernie Kosar says, ask Coach O'Shea a question, I'll be damned if I'm not going to follow for what Bernie has to say. So Bernie it's a very simple one. He just says, who's your favorite trainer?
Favorite trainer is the favorite trainer of him too, and that's Mike O'Shea, my father. So this is great. So
that's awesome.
I grew up around the University of Miami football program, and what an awesome thing that was for myself. And to be honest with you, I don't think I'm sitting here right now if it wasn't for the experiences and being there, a part of that kind of led me down this path of coaching. And certainly Bernie Kosar was right in the middle of that. I had Bernie Kosar, the number 20 jersey, University of Miami, that I wore around the schools down there, and then obviously follow him in his career here. And just have so much respect for him as a player and person and that program down there. But we share there's some great memories from those times, and I think it's just so unique that I'm here now, and he's such a big part of this organization.
That is cool.
Yeah.
What
That's
Bernie
awesome.
helping us do our jobs, man. Bernie's giving us.
I was not anticipating. That was good.
No.
It's a good job out of Bernie.
Yes. Well,
job.
he does a lot of good jobs.
That's awesome.
That's right.
Yes, he does. He's the best. Coach, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Enjoyed it.
All right, that's our great wide receiver, Coach Chad O'Shea, joining us live in studio. Coming up next, we'll go around the league. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Browns Daily. It's summertime, and that means time to open your windows. Let that fresh air in. Your windows won't open. Well, you're in luck. The buy one, get one is back at Weather Seal Home Services. Buy one Ultra Seal window, get one Ultra Seal window free. Buy 5, get 5. There's no minimum or maximum to replace all your windows all at once. Weather Seal's Ultra Seal windows are strong, they are durable, they are beautiful, they're easy to clean and easy to open. And for the lowest monthly payments, you can ask about Weather Seal's exclusive 7-year, 0-interest financing with approved credit. Weather Seal, locally owned and a name you can trust. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit WeatherSealHomeServices.com. So when Bernie sent us the text, the great Bernie Kosar, great friend of the program, great human, when he sent us the text, you know, I thought maybe there's somebody here locally.
Like an inside joke or something? Yes.
Yeah, some sort of an inside joke. But no. In typical great Bernie fashion, it's not that at all. It, in fact, goes all the way back to Coach O'Shea's childhood and his time running around the U when Bernie was the king of Miami, and his dad as the trainer at the U.
Who would you say – hold on. Who would you say were the 3 biggest quarterbacks that came out of the U kind of in succession in that era?
It's Kosar, Kelly, and it's Testaverde.
He was there for all of it. I was just talking to Coach O'Shea afterwards. So he got to be kind of,
he got to see
the young man of the program running around with all these guys in the middle of all of that.
Well, Mark Richt would have been there too, because Richt was the backup to Jim Kelly, so it was who ended up having a great career as the head coach at Georgia. But if that really is the birth of a football dynasty, he was there for. I mean, that birthed it. When you talk about going, from Kelly to Kosar to Testaverde, they win the national championship with Bernie. They win one with Testaverde as well. I think Testaverde was the quarterback. I know they lost to Penn State once with Testaverde.
That was the one where they came in
the Heisman, but
the camo, I think.
Fatigues.
Yeah.
But they won the one with Howard, and then they won one with Jimmy, and then one with Dennis Erickson as well. It's incredible. That's just an incredible thing to be able to witness as a kid and to have that. To be exposed to that type of greatness at a young age, it's awesome. You see how you choose a path in football.
It is awesome. And I was going to say, in addition to that, I mean, he's wearing a number 20 around, and now Bernie is here, and he's with the Browns. And because of last year, they didn't really get to connect, and I'm sure now they absolutely will. But that's kind of the magic, I think, in a way, of sports, right? It's the camaraderie and the experiences you get, and for Coach O'Shea to be around that and exposed to that made him want to do this for a living. And now the full circle nature of these things that keep happening is just stunning. And now Bernie making another connection. Just it's wild. But what I wanted to say,
people helping people.
That's right. People helping people. What I wanted to say about Coach O'Shea and Coach Tarver, who we were so lucky to have both of them, spend some time here, is this from the guys that you've worked with who played the game. I know this from the guys that I've worked with who played the game. Position coaches are critical to your development. And if you want to know how good a position coach is, look at how his players develop or don't under their tutelage. And when you see guys consistently progress under a position coach, that says a lot about what they bring to the table. And Coach O'Shea, everywhere he's been, whether it was with New England for those many years, down in Miami, Devontae Parker's career, former first-round pick, was not going anywhere until Chad O'Shea got a hold of him. And now you're seeing what's happening here with these Browns receivers and the Browns linebackers with Coach Tarver. But we are so fortunate to have guys like that on this staff. And I think Coach O'Shea is just an unbelievable asset to this organization, and it's great that we're able to get some time with him and pick his brain because he tells you how it is, which I also love about him, and the players like that about him too because they know exactly where they stand.
Yeah, I think the real big thing about and you hit on it, and you talk to a man, to anybody who's played, and oftentimes what I will get with guys that I've talked to is they feel like in many instances they had better position coaches in college than they did in the NFL. And I think you would probably, from the guys you've talked to, would echo that statement that by and large the position coaches in college are better than the ones in the NFL, that there is kind of a old boys network in the NFL.
Absolutely.
In certain staffs, right? Where, this guy was this guy and him, and that's why he's here. This staff, folks, it's extraordinary. This is an extraordinary staff. And I'll tell you what, it takes a lot of humility, and it takes the incredible amount of self-confidence and humility for Kevin Stefanski to put this staff together. It's remarkable because he surrounded himself by some of the best people that for some people would be viewed as threats. Stefanski does not view them as that. He views them as collaborators, and that is a testament to his character and what he's all about as a head coach.
I mean, if I could, you hit the nail on it. Look, it's like riding a bike. We're back speaking out of the same brain again. You can't keep us apart. But
well,
that's what it is.
Until we do a show again after today, but yes.
You're going on vacation. Well deserved, by the way.
That's right, vacation. Yeah.
When you look at there's no connection to Bill Callahan, who's been a play caller, who's been a head coach in the league. There was not a connection to Alex Van Pelt. There was not a connection to Chad O'Shea. There wasn't a connection to Stump Mitchell. And yet, he said, get me the best guys. I'm comfortable. And that's the word that Chad O'Shea, the humility of your head coach, have all these resources. Let's just get together and get it right. And that's what Andrew Berry does on the personnel side. That's what Paul DePodesta does in his role. There's no hierarchy of thought. We got a bunch of good, talented people. Let's be the best we can be, and let's get to the best answer. I don't care who gets us there. Let's get to the best answer possible. And that's why this organization is, in addition to the unbelievable talent on the field, as healthy as it is. And that's why the players, when they go out there, and I talk to a guy like Kareem Hunt, and the first thing he says to me is, look, we know how talented we are in this locker room. The second thing he says is, we know we are going to be coached to be put into positions to succeed. So now it all falls on us to do our work, and make sure we handle our end of the bargain so we can have the success this team should have. But it's because of guys like that, and Stump Mitchell in the running back room with him, and Bill Callahan and Scott Peters, and Drew Petzing with the tight ends, and AVP. That is why this is able on this side of the ball to happen, and the same is true on the defensive side of the ball with Joe Woods and the people that he's brought in on that side.
Yeah, it's special. It is. It's very special, and you see it. You can't fool pros, guys.
No.
You can't fool them. If you're not up to par, the pros sniff it out quickly, and you lose teams, you lose rooms. And it's the opposite, which is going around here, and you've got a pretty good example of it of the last half hour or so. Listen to those two guys.
Yeah.
Still so much more to come. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Elk and Elk Serious Lawyers, Serious Injuries. Call 1-800-ELK Ohio today for a free case review. Elk and Elk is a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Z, a little preview of the next couple of days at Browns camp as we continue to fine-tune, and then we got a game week next week.
It's crazy, right? We're 9 days away from the preseason opener. In single digits now, 9 days away.
Yeah.
So back at practice tomorrow, and then I'd imagine on Saturday you'll probably get the pads back on. Sunday, same thing, First Energy Stadium. Off Monday, practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, flying down to Jacksonville. Saturday night, preseason opener against the Jags. I mean, it's coming that quickly, folks.
Yeah, and I think, it's important because, some of these headliners early in camp, and we talked obviously about Donovan, we talked about Felton as well. You cannot make your spot in the roster known in the first week of camp, but you can lose it.
1 minute.
These young guys are making this type of impression. It's a big deal to make those type of impressions that they're making. Does it guarantee that they're going to be something in September? Of course not, but it matters. Every single one of these practices matter.
That's exactly right, and it's about putting that work in, taking the incremental steps, seeing that development, seeing that improvement, getting on the same page so it all becomes second nature when you had September the 12th head up to Kansas City.
Absolutely. Going to be a lot of fun.
I'm sad. What a treat.
Just a taste.
Hug me through this. Come back.
Little vacation. Vacation. Be there soon enough.
Soon enough.
God will. A little off next week. So I trust you and the great Gibby, of course, to continue to navigate these waters as you have so elegantly to this point. All right. The next level.